Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it. Then let's evaluate together. The sun bled crimson over Cape May, New Jersey, painting the sky in hues of fire and heartache, on Sunset Beach, where the Atlantic whispered secrets to the shore. Emma Brooks stood in a white silk wedding dress, her brown skin glowing under the fading light. Her curly hair, a cascade of natural coils, was adorned with tiny white daisies, catching the breeze like a crown of dreams. At 28, Emma was the heart of this small coastal town, her bookstore, Sea Whisper, a haven for kids and dreamers alike. But today, she was a bride waiting for a groom who wasn't coming. The crowd gathered near the water's edge, their chatter mingling with the rhythmic crash of waves and the distant clang of St. Peter's by the Sea's bell. Wooden chairs draped in sea-blue ribbons formed a semicircle, and a small arch of driftwood and daisies stood where the priest waited. Emma's best friend Talia stood nearby, her eyes darting nervously toward the path leading from Washington Street. The air smelled of salt and wildflowers, thick with anticipation. But something felt wrong. Emma's heart thudded a quiet warning she tried to ignore. Any minute now, she murmured, clutching her bouquet of daisies, her voice barely audible over the ocean's song. Her eyes, deep brown and sparkling with hope, scanned the crowd, locals from Cape May, kids from her storytime sessions, even tourists who'd heard about the bookstore bride. But Daniel Hale, her fiancé of 7 years, was nowhere to be seen. Talia, in a teal dress that hugged her curves, stepped closer, her braids swaying. "Yo, Emma, he's probably just fixing his tie or something. You know how Daniel has always got to look sharp." Her smile was forced, her hands twisting the hem of her dress. Emma nodded, forcing a laugh, but her fingers tightened around the bouquet. She smoothed her dress, the silk cool against her skin, its hem embroidered with delicate shells, a gift from her late mother who'd passed 5 years ago. "Yeah, he texted this morning," she said, her voice softer now. "Said he couldn't wait to see me walk down the aisle." The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a ripple of unease spreading like the tide. Father Amos, the priest with a warm smile and salt and pepper hair, glanced at his watch. Emma's heart sank, the hope in her eyes flickering like a candle in the wind. She took a step forward, her bare feet sinking into the sand, and scanned the path again. Nothing. Just the empty stretch of beach and the silhouette of the Cape May lighthouse in the distance. "Miss Emma looks like a princess," a small voice shouted. Isaiah, an 11-year-old boy from her bookstore, ran up his sneakers, kicking up sand. His grin was wide, but even he paused, sensing the shift in the air. Emma bent down, kissing his cheek, her smile trembling. "Thanks, little man," she whispered, ruffling his hair. But as she straightened, a cold dread crept into her chest. She looked toward the arch where Daniel was supposed to stand, his familiar grin lighting up her world. Instead, there was only Father Amos, his face etched with concern, and a few guests whispering, their eyes darting to her. "He's just late," Emma told herself, her voice barely a breath. She walked toward the arch, gripping the bouquet so tightly the stems bruised her palms. The waves roared louder, as if trying to drown out her fear. But then Talia rushed forward, her face pale, her braids swinging wildly. "Emma," Talia said, her voice trembling. She grabbed Emma's hand, her grip too tight. "Daniel, he's not here." Emma blinked, the words not sinking in. "Not here. What you mean, T?" Talia's eyes welled with tears. "He left Miss Clara from the inn, saw him peel out in his car an hour ago. Nobody knows where he went." The world stopped, the waves, the whispers, the bell's faint chime, they blurred into a deafening hum in Emma's ears. Her dress swayed in the sea breeze, the silk brushing her ankles. But her heart felt like it was being crushed under the weight of 1,000 tides. She stood frozen, the bouquet slipping from her hands, white petals scattering across the sand like broken promises. "No," she murmured, her voice faint, almost lost to the wind. "There's gotta be a mistake. Daniel wouldn't—" But the truth hit her like a rogue wave. Daniel, the man she'd loved since their college days in Philadelphia, the one she'd built dreams with through late-night talks and shared books, had abandoned her on their wedding day. No note, no call, no explanation. Just gone. The crowd's pitying glances pierced her like shards of glass. Neighbors, friends, strangers. They all stared, their silence louder than any words. Emma's legs trembled, her breath hitching. Talia hugged her, but Emma gently pulled away. I need to go," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. Without looking back, she turned and ran, her dress billowing like a lost sail. The crowd parted, no one daring to speak. She ran through Cape May's familiar streets, past the pastel Victorian houses, past Salt and Soul Talia's coffee shop, past the beach where she and Daniel once built sandcastles. Her bare feet pounded the cobblestones of Washington Street until she reached Sea Whisper, her small bookstore, its wooden sign creaking in the breeze. The door's bell jingled as she pushed it open, a lonely note in the quiet. Inside, the air was warm, scented with old paper and cedar. Golden light from hanging lanterns spilled over shelves brimming with novels, poetry, and children's books. Emma slid to the floor, her back against a bookshelf, her dress pooling around her like a cloud. She buried her face in her hands, tears soaking her skin, staining the silk. "Why, Daniel?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "What did I do wrong?" The bookstore where she'd poured her heart was her only refuge. She'd turned it into a sanctuary for Cape May's kids, reading them stories by Toni Morrison and Langston Hughes, teaching them to dream through pages. But now it felt like a tomb holding the shattered pieces of her heart. She didn't know how long she sat there, surrounded by books she'd shared with Daniel, books she'd read to Isaiah and his friends. The world outside faded, leaving only her sobs and the distant crash of waves, unseen. A figure stood outside, watching through the glass window. Leo Westwood, 32, dressed in a simple navy suit, his dark brown hair tousled by the sea breeze, stared at Emma with eyes the color of the Atlantic. He wasn't from Cape May, just a guest invited by Father Amos, his old college buddy, under the guise of a local charity event. But when he saw Emma standing frozen on the beach, her dress fluttering, her face crumpling with pain, something in him broke. Leo's hand rested on the glass, the cold biting his palm. He'd seen her before 2 years ago at a reading event he'd quietly funded. She'd stood among a group of orphaned kids, her voice clear and warm. Reading "I Know Why the Caged Bird" sings with a passion that lit up the room. Her brown eyes sparkled, her laughter like music, and Leo had fallen for her right then. But he'd learned she was with Daniel, so he stayed in the shadows, funneling money to Sea Whisper through his Bright Horizon Foundation, hoping to support her dream without ever stepping into her life. Now, seeing her crumpled on the floor, her strength shattered, Leo felt a quiet resolve form in his chest. He wasn't just a billionaire hiding behind a low-key vibe. He was a man who'd lost too much, his younger sister Clara, to a heart condition when she was 10, and he wouldn't let Emma drown in this pain. "Not if he could help it. You'll be okay. Emma Brooks," he whispered, his voice low like a vow to the wind. His breath fogged the glass, his eyes shimmering with sorrow and something fiercer hope. He wanted to push the door open, to kneel beside her, to tell her she was worth more than Daniel's betrayal, but he knew she needed time-space to breathe through the hurt. So he stepped back, his sneakers crunching on the cobblestones, and walked into the crimson sunset, carrying a secret only he knew. He'd been watching her for years, not as a savior, but as a man captivated by her light. Inside Sea. Whisper. Emma's tears slowed her breaths, steadying. She lifted her head, her eyes tracing the shelves, books she'd chosen, stories she'd shared, dreams she'd built. A spark of defiance flickered in her chest. She wasn't ready to heal, not yet, but she wouldn't let Daniel's absence define her. Not here in the place she'd made her own. She stood smoothing her dress, the silk now creased and tear-stained. Her fingers brushed a copy of Audre Lorde's Sister, Outsider on the shelf, a book her mother had loved. "You're enough, Emma," she whispered to herself, echoing words her mother once said. She didn't believe it yet, but saying it felt like a start. Outside, the waves kept their steady rhythm, washing over Sunset Beach. Carrying away the petals of her bouquet, Cape May settled into dusk, its Victorian houses glowing under streetlights, unaware of the storm in Emma's heart. But in that storm, a new story was beginning. One of pain, yes, but also of strength of light, and of a man who'd made a silent promise to help her find it again. Leo paused at the edge of Washington Street, glancing back at the bookstore's warm glow. His hand slipped into his pocket, fingers brushing a small white seashell he'd picked up on the beach. "This ain't over, Emma," he said to himself, a grin tugging at his lips. "I'm gonna make you smile again. Bet on it." He turned toward the lighthouse, its beam cutting through the twilight, and walked on, ready to step into her life, not as a billionaire, but as Leo, the guy who'd lose a shell-hunting bet just to see her laugh. Cape May woke to a soft dawn, the Atlantic's waves lapping gently at Sunset Beach, as if whispering apologies for the heartbreak they'd witnessed. Washington Street buzzed with early risers, tourists snapping pics of Victorian houses, locals grabbing coffee at Salt and Soul. But inside Sea Whisper, Emma Brooks was fighting a quieter battle. A week had passed since her wedding day crumbled, and though she'd reopened her bookstore, the weight of Daniel's betrayal clung to her like damp sand. Emma, 28, stood behind the counter, her brown skin catching the morning light filtering through the shop's bay window. Her curly hair was tied loosely, a few coils escaping to frame her face. No daisies today, just the raw, unadorned version of herself. Her deep brown eyes, once bright with dreams, were shadowed, tracing the order book without really seeing it. She wore an oversized gray sweater, the sleeves hiding her hands as if she could shield herself from the pitying glances of Cape May's locals. The bell above the door jingled, snapping her out of her haze. Talia burst in her braids, bouncing a tray of iced coffees from Salt and Soul in hand. "Yo, Emma, you look like you need a caffeine hit stat," she said, her voice bright but laced with concern. She set the tray down, her floral sundress swishing. "And don't gimme that 'I'm fine' vibe. I know you ain't slept." Emma forced a smile, taking a cup. The cold plastic grounded her a small anchor in the storm of her thoughts. "I'm good tea, just keepin' busy." Her voice was soft, barely convincing. She sipped the coffee, the sweet caramel notes doing little to lift the ache in her chest. Talia leaned on the counter, her eyes narrowing. "Busy hiding. You mean, girl, you can't let Daniel's dumbass dim your shine. You're Emma Brooks, queen of Sea Whisper, making kids' eyes light up with books. Don't let him steal that." Emma's smile faltered. She wanted to believe Talia, but every time she passed a mirror, she saw a stranger, a black woman who'd poured her heart into a man who left her at the altar. She'd grown up in Cape May, a town that loved her bookstore, but sometimes whispered about her not fitting in during her school years. Daniel had been her safe harbor, or so she thought. Now she wondered if she'd ever been enough. "I'm trying, T," she said, her voice cracking. "But everywhere I go, folks look at me like I'm broken." Talia reached across the counter, squeezing her hand. "You ain't broken, Emma. You're a whole damn masterpiece. And if anybody says otherwise, they can catch these hands." Emma laughed, a small, genuine sound that felt like a victory. The bell jingled again and she looked up, expecting another local with a sympathetic frown. Instead, a man stepped in his presence like a breeze cutting through the shop's stillness. Leo Westwood, 32, wore a navy button-up with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, his dark brown hair tousled like he'd just walked off the beach. His blue eyes, deep as the ocean, sparkled with a grin that screamed trouble, the good kind. "Yo, this place is straight-up magic," Leo said, his voice warm. Scanning the shelves packed with novels and poetry, he held a to-go cup from Salt and Soul, the logo catching Emma's eye. "Heard this is the spot in Cape May for books, and maybe some dope coffee recommendations." Emma blinked, caught off guard by his easy vibe. You're in the right place for books," she said, her tone cautious but polite. "Coffee's down the street at Salt and Soul. Looks like you already found it." Talia smirked, nudging Emma smooth. This is Leo, by the way. Met him at the shop yesterday. Said he's in town for some charity thing with Father Amos." Leo flashed a grin, leaning against a shelf. "Yeah, Father. A's my guy. But I'm staying a bit, checking out the Cape May vibes. And this bookstore, it's got serious soul." His eyes locked on Emma's, a flicker of something deeper beneath the humor. Emma felt a warmth creep up her neck, unexpected and unwelcome. She wasn't ready for whatever this was. "Thanks," she said, busying herself with the order book. "Let me know if you need a book rec." Over the next few days, Leo became a regular, popping into Sea Whisper with a joke or a question about books. He'd linger helping stack chairs after Emma's storytime sessions with kids, or dropping by Salt and Soul when she was there, pretending it was a coincidence. Cape May's smaller than I thought he'd say, winking, making her roll her eyes but smile despite herself. He had a way of cutting through her walls like sunlight through fog, and it scared her as much as it intrigued her. One evening, as a summer storm rolled in, Emma stayed late at Sea Whisper, sorting a new shipment of books. The rain hammered the roof a steady drumbeat, and the air smelled of wet cedar and old pages. She wore jeans and a loose yellow blouse, her hair free, curling wildly in the humidity. The bell jingled and she looked up startled to see Leo, his navy jacket soaked, holding a paper bag from Salt and Soul and a hardcover book. "Yo, you work too hard," he said, shaking rain from his hair, his grin undimmed by the downpour. "Figured a rainy night calls for some soul food and a good read. Got Cornbread and Beloved by Toni Morrison." "You in?" Emma raised an eyebrow, fighting a smile. "Cornbread? You trying to bribe me?" "Leo guilty," he said, setting the bag on the counter. "But I'm betting you can't resist Talia's Cornbread, and this book heard. It's a classic. Thought you'd vibe with it." She hesitated, her guard still up, but the warmth in his eyes and the smell of cornbread won her over. "Fine," she said, grabbing the bag, "but only 'cause I'm starving." They sat on a woven rug in the shop's reading nook, the rain a soft roar outside, golden light from hanging lanterns casting shadows on the shelves. Emma took a bite of cornbread, the buttery sweetness melting on her tongue, and sighed. "Okay, you win. This is fire." "Told ya," Leo said, leaning back, his eyes tracing her face. "You got a smile that could light up this whole town, Emma." Her cheeks flushed and she looked away, focusing on the book in his hand. "Beloved, huh? You read it?" "Nah, but I heard you talk about Morrison at story time. Figured you'd school me on it." His voice was playful, but there was a sincerity that made her heart skip. They talked for hours, the rain fading to a drizzle. The shop, a cocoon of warmth. Emma found herself laughing, really laughing for the first time since the wedding. Leo's stories, like the time he spilled soda on a charity gala suit in Atlantic City, had her doubled over, her curls bouncing. But beneath the humor, she felt his gaze steady and deep, like he saw parts of her she'd hidden even from herself. As they cleared the crumbs, their hands brushed, and Emma froze. Leo's fingers lingered slow and deliberate, tracing the curve of her palm. Her skin tingled the warmth of his touch, spreading like wildfire. The air thickened, scented with cornbread, her jasmine perfume and the faint musk of his cologne, sandalwood grounding and heady. "Emma," he murmured, his voice low, like the rain's last whispers. "You got no idea how beautiful you are when you let go." Her breath hitched, her pulse racing under his fingers. The lantern's glow danced on her brown skin, highlighting the curve of her cheek. She leaned closer, drawn to the heat in his eyes, the promise of something she wasn't ready to name. Their faces were inches apart, his breath warm against her lips, the world narrowing to the space between them. But fear clawed at her memories of Daniel's promises flashing like warning signs. She pulled back her hand, slipping from his, her voice shaky. I can't." Leo nodded, his eyes soft. No trace of frustration. "All good, Emma. I'm not going anywhere." He stood, grabbing his jacket, but left the book on the counter, a silent invitation. The next morning, Emma was restocking shelves when Isaiah burst in, clutching a crumpled Forbes magazine from Salt and Soul. "Miss Emma, look." "It's Leo," he said, his eyes wide, pointing at the cover. Emma frowned, taking the magazine. Her breath caught. There he was. Leo, his grin unmistakable, his blue eyes piercing even in print. The headline screamed, "Leo Westwood, billionaire with a heart of gold." Her hands trembled as she skimmed the article. Leo Westwood, 32, founder of Bright Horizon Foundation, had poured millions into schools, libraries, and small towns like Cape May. One line hit like a punch. Westwood funded the expansion of community libraries, including a beloved bookstore in Cape May, New Jersey, Sea Whisper. 2 years ago, when she'd nearly lost the shop, a grant from an unknown foundation had saved it. She'd thought it was luck. Now she knew it was Leo. "Miss Emma." "He's rich?" Isaiah asked, bouncing on his toes. "Yeah, Isaiah," she said, her voice hollow. "Real rich?" She sent him home, her mind spinning. Leo wasn't just the funny guy who brought cornbread and bad jokes. He was a billionaire, a man from a world she could barely touch. Had he been playing her, pitying her? The thought stung sharper than Daniel's betrayal. When Leo walked into Sea Whisper that afternoon, his usual grin faded at the sight of her face. She held up the magazine, her eyes blazing. "You're a billionaire, Leo. You funded my shop and didn't say a word. What is this, some kind of game, Emma?" "No," he said, stepping closer, his voice earnest. "I didn't tell you because I wanted you to see me, not the money. I funded Sea Whisper because I believe in what you do in you." Her heart twisted, torn between his words and her fear. "You let me think you were just some guy," she said, her voice breaking. "I trusted you, Leo." "You can still trust me," he said, his eyes pleading. "I'm the same dude who loses at shell hunting bets. I'm not here to hurt you," but the walls she'd let down were back up higher than ever. "I need time," she said, turning away, her curls hiding her face. "Please, just go." Leo nodded, his jaw tight, and walked out, the bells jingle like a final note. Emma sank into a chair, the magazine slipping to the floor. She picked up Beloved, her fingers tracing the cover, the warmth of last night's touch still lingering. Outside, the waves rolled on, steady and unyielding. But inside, Emma was a storm caught between the man she'd started to care for and the secrets that threatened to drown her trust. The summer air in Cape May hung heavy, thick with salt and unspoken questions. Sea Whisper was still Emma Brooks' sanctuary. But after discovering Leo Westwood's secret that he was a billionaire who'd quietly saved her bookstore, she felt like the shelves were closing in. His name, Leo Westwood, echoed in her mind, tied to a world of wealth and power she couldn't grasp. Was he just another man making promises he wouldn't keep? Like Daniel. Emma, 28, couldn't shake the doubt. Her brown eyes shadowed as she stacked books, her curly hair pulled into a messy bun. No daisies, no pretense. Maya, her older sister, had driven down from Newark the day after the Forbes bombshell, her journalist instincts on high alert, over coffee at Salt and Soul. Maya's braids were tucked neatly under a head wrap, her voice sharp. "Emma, you gotta watch yourself with this Leo guy, rich dudes like him. They always got an angle. You're not some charity case for him to fix." Emma stirred her iced latte, the ice clinking against the glass, her fingers cold. "I know, Maya," she said, her voice low. "But he's different. Or I thought he was." The memory of Leo's touch, his fingers tracing her palm, the sandalwood scent of him still burned, but so did the sting of his secret. Different. Maya scoffed, leaning forward. "He funded your shop and didn't tell you. That's not different. That's control. You're Emma Brooks, Queen of Cape May. Don't let some billionaire play you." Emma nodded, but her heart wasn't so sure. She needed space, a break from Cape May's pitying stares and Leo's ocean blue eyes. So when an invite came for a book festival in Beacon, a small artsy town in New York's Hudson Valley, she jumped at it. A weekend away surrounded by books and strangers might clear the fog in her head. Hudson Valley was a world apart from Cape May's salty breezes. Rolling hills hugged the Hudson River, their green slopes dotted with vineyards and old barns. Beacon's main street buzzed with indie shops, street musicians, and the faint hum of creativity. Emma checked into a cozy B&B, her jeans and loose white blouse. A far cry from her wedding dress, her curls free, catching the sunlight. The festival, held in a converted factory, was alive with authors, readers, and stacks of books, the air scented with coffee and fresh ink. She wandered the booths, her fingers brushing spines of poetry collections, her mind drifting to Sea Whisper, a panel on Black women writers. Audre Lorde, Zora, Neil Hurston drew her in, and for a moment she felt like herself again, scribbling notes, her heart swelling with the words of her heroes. But as she stepped out into the afternoon sun, a familiar voice stopped her cold. "Yo, Emma, you stalking me or what?" Leo Westwood leaned against a lamppost, his grin as disarming as ever, his navy t-shirt clinging to his frame. Hair tousled like he'd just hiked a trail. His blue eyes sparkled, but there was a cautious edge to them, like he knew he was on thin ice. Emma's heart skipped a mix of anger and something she didn't want to name. "Me stalking you?" she said, crossing her arms, her curls bouncing. "What you doing in Beacon, Leo?" "This ain't Cape May." He shrugged, stepping closer, the scent of cedar cologne faint but dizzying. "Heard about this festival, thought I'd check it out. Plus, I got a thing for art. There's this spot, Storm King, Art Center, not far from here. You ever been?" She narrowed her eyes, not buying his casual vibe. "You just happen to show up where I'm at." Again? Leo's grin softened, his voice dropping. "Okay, maybe I heard you were coming. Didn't want to crowd you, but I missed you, Emma. Wanted to see if you're okay." Her throat tightened, his words hitting harder than she expected. She wanted to snap to push him away, but the sincerity in his eyes held her. "I'm fine," she lied, turning toward Main Street. I don't need you checking up on me. But Leo fell into step beside her. Undeterred, his sneakers scuffing the sidewalk. Aight, then let me make it up to you. Storm King's dope. Big sculptures, open fields. Come with me. No pressure. Just vibes. Against her better judgment. Emma agreed, if only to prove she wasn't running from him. They drove to Storm King Art Center, a sprawling outdoor museum where massive steel sculptures rose against the hills, glinting in the late afternoon sun. The air was crisp, scented with grass and pine, and Emma felt a flicker of freedom, her curls swaying as she walked beside Leo. He pointed at a towering, abstract piece, its curves catching the light. Bet you could write a poem about that one, he said, his voice playful. What's it saying to you? She tilted her head, studying the sculpture, her guard softening. Strength, she said after a moment, like it's been through hell but still standing tall. Leo looked at her, his eyes steady. Kinda like you, huh? Her breath caught the words cutting deep. She turned away, focusing on the next sculpture, but Leo's presence was a pull she couldn't ignore. As they wandered, he opened up his voice, quieter now. I owe you the truth, Emma, about why I care so much. She stopped, her heart pounding. Go on, then. He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes distant. My little sister Clara died when she was 10. Heart condition. She loved books, stories just like you do. When she was gone, I swore I'd make the world better for kids like her. That's why I started Bright Horizon, why I funded Sea Whisper. Not 'cause I pity you, but 'cause you're doing what Clara would have loved. Emma's chest tightened, her anger mixing with empathy. I'm sorry about Clara, she said softly. But you should have told me, Leo. You let me think you were just some guy, not this. She gestured vaguely, meaning his wealth, his world. I know, he said, stepping closer, his voice raw. I messed up. But when I saw you reading to those kids 2 years ago, your voice all fire and heart, I didn't see a project. I saw you, Emma, and I couldn't look away. Her eyes stung his words, unraveling her defenses. Before she could respond, a rumble of thunder rolled in dark clouds, swallowing the sun. Raindrops pattered, then poured a sudden summer storm, drenching them. Leo grabbed her hand, pulling her toward a massive steel sculpture, its curved panels offering shelter. They ducked underneath the rain, a roaring curtain around them, the air electric with ozone and tension. Emma's blouse clung to her skin, her brown curls plastered to her neck, glistening under flashes of lightning. Leo stood close, his t-shirt soaked, outlining the lines of his chest. The storm's growl drowned out the world, leaving only the thud of her pulse and the heat of his gaze. Emma, he said, his voice a low rumble barely audible over the rain. You make me forget every damn thing but you. Her breath hitched, the lightning illuminating his eyes blue and fierce. He stepped closer, his hand brushing her waist, fingers grazing the wet fabric, sending a jolt through her. The rain's rhythm matched her heartbeat, wild and unyielding. Leo leaned in his lips, hovering near her cheek, his breath warm against her skin. Tell me to stop, he whispered. But his voice was a plea, not a command. She didn't. Her hand found his chest, feeling the rapid thump of his heart through the wet cotton. The storm's flashes lit up her skin, brown and radiant, and for a moment she let herself want him, the pull stronger than her fear. Their lips were a breath apart, the air crackling when a crack of thunder snapped her back. She pushed him away, her chest heaving, her eyes wide with panic and longing. I can't do this, she said, her voice trembling, rain dripping from her curls. Not now. Leo nodded, his jaw tight, but his eyes were soft. I'll wait, Emma. As long as you need. They drove back to Beacon in silence, the rain a steady drum on the car's roof, Emma's mind was a tangle. Leo's confession, his touch, the storm's electric pull. She wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. Was she just a way to honor Clara's memory? A project to soothe his guilt? The next morning, as Emma packed to return to Cape May, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo. Leo at a Beacon bar, laughing with a woman. Vanessa Reed, a sleek, ambitious journalist in a red dress, her hand on his arm. The caption read, "Guess he moves fast." "Sorry, Emma." Her stomach dropped, the image searing into her mind. Vanessa had been at the festival, hovering near Leo, her smile too sharp. Emma's fingers shook as she dialed Leo, her voice ice when he answered. "What's this picture, Leo? You playing me?" "Emma, no," he said, his voice urgent. "That's Vanessa Reed, some reporter trying to get a story. I barely know her. I swear it's not what it looks like." "Then what is it?" she snapped, her voice rising. "You fund my shop. You follow me to Beacon, and now you're cozy with some chick. Am I just a project to you, Leo? A way to feel good about Clara?" His silence was a knife. "You're not a project," he said finally, his voice raw. "You're everything, Emma. But you don't trust me, and I can't make you." She hung up, tears burning her eyes. The photo, Vanessa's smug caption, Maya's warnings. They swirled in her head, drowning out Leo's words. She boarded the train back to Cape May, the Hudson River, flashing past her heart. A battlefield. She clutched a small white seashell Leo had given her in Beacon, its smooth surface, a reminder of his touch, his promise. But now, it felt like another lie. Back in Cape May, sea. Whisper waited its shelves, a quiet refuge. Emma stood behind the counter, her curls loose, her eyes haunted. Maya's voice echoed, rich. Dude's always got an angle. But Leo's confession, his rain-soaked gaze, lingered too. She didn't know what to believe, but one thing was clear. Trusting him meant risking her heart again, and she wasn't sure she could survive another break. Outside, a new storm brewed, the waves crashing harder against Sunset Beach. And in New York, Vanessa Reed smiled at her phone, typing a post that would light Cape May's gossip mill on fire. Billionaire Leo Westwood's latest fling, or just another charity case. Cape May's summer pulsed with life, the Atlantic's waves crashing against Sunset Beach, their rhythm a steady heartbeat under the town's pastel glow. But inside, Sea Whisper, Emma Brooks was caught in a different kind of storm. The photo of Leo with Vanessa Reed in Beacon still burned in her mind, a jagged edge to the doubt she'd carried since learning he was a billionaire. At 28, Emma felt like she was drowning between her shattered trust in Leo Maya's warnings and the ghost of Daniel's betrayal. Emma stood behind the bookstore counter, her brown skin catching the morning light through the bay window, her curly hair loose framing her face like a halo. She wore a mustard-yellow sundress, the fabric soft against her skin, but her deep brown eyes were heavy, scanning a stack of invoices. Sea Whisper was her anchor, its shelves packed with Toni Morrison, Audre Lorde, and children's books that made kids like Isaiah light up. But lately it felt like a weight too, with bills piling up and whispers about her broken wedding lingering in Cape May's gossip mill. The bell jingled and Emma looked up, expecting Talia with her usual iced coffee and sass. Instead, her heart stopped. Daniel Hale stood in the doorway, his blonde hair slicked back, his gray suit tailored sharp, a far cry from the hoodie-wearing college boy she'd loved in Philadelphia. At 30, he looked polished, confident, but his pale blue eyes carried a flicker of remorse, or so it seemed, Emma. He said, his voice low, stepping closer to the counter. I need to talk to you." Her grip tightened on the invoices, her pulse racing. "Daniel," she said, her voice dry, barely above a whisper. "What the hell you doing here?" He lowered his head, hands in his pockets, searching for words. I know I don't deserve this, but I'm sorry, Emma. That day our wedding, I panicked. It wasn't you. It was me. I wasn't ready. And I ran. I was wrong. His apology hit like a slap, sharp and familiar. Emma remembered the night she'd dreamed of this moment, Daniel crawling back, saying it was a mistake. But now, standing before him, she felt only a hollow ache. "You abandoned me," she said, her voice trembling, her curls bouncing as she leaned forward. In front of everyone. "Daniel, you think sorry fixes that?" He stepped closer, his eyes pleading. "I know I hurt you, Emma, but I've been thinking about us. I want to make it right. I'm in Atlantic City now, working real estate, making bank. I can give you a better life. Philly a nice spot. Trips to Miami. You don't gotta stay in this little shop." Her jaw dropped his words, slicing deeper than his absence. "Little shop?" She repeated, her voice choked with anger. "This is Sea Whisper, Daniel. My dream, where I teach kids to love stories, where I built something real. You never got that, did you?" Daniel shrugged, oblivious to the insult. "I just want what's best for you, Emma. Think about it. A fresh start. You and me like old times. Strolling through Reading Terminal Market, sharing cheesesteaks, laughing under Philly's streetlights. The memories stung, but they also reminded her of Daniel's flaws, his dismissal of her bookstore dreams, his need for a bigger life. She pointed to the door, her voice firm. "Go, Daniel. I need to think." He left, but his words lingered, stirring a fear she hated to admit. Maybe she was stuck clinging to a small-town dream while the world moved on. That afternoon, as she read to kids at story time, Isaiah's grin and the kids' laughter grounded her, but only for a moment. The bell jingled and Talia stormed in, her braids swinging, her eyes wide. "Emma, you ain't gonna believe this," Talia said, slapping a letter on the counter. "Some real estate company from Atlantic City's trying to buy this block. They want Sea Whisper for a damn casino." Emma's stomach dropped as she read the letter. The company Coastal Ventures offered a hefty sum, but threatened legal action if she didn't sell. Her hand shook the paper, crinkling. "They can't do this," she whispered. "This is my home." Talia hugged her fierce and warm. "We'll fight this, E. You're not losing, Sea Whisper. Not on my watch." But the pressure mounted. Maya, visiting again, argued practicality. "Emma, maybe it's time to let go," she said over dinner at Salt and Soul, her voice gentle but firm. "You could start over somewhere bigger. This shop's killing you." "No." Emma snapped, her eyes blazing. "This shop's what keeps me going. You don't get it." Maya. Isaiah, though, got it. The 11-year-old slipped into Sea Whisper the next day, his sneakers scuffing the floor. "Miss Emma, you ain't selling right. This place is... it's like family." She hugged him, tears pricking her eyes. "Not if I can help it, little man." Meanwhile, Leo Westwood kept his distance, respecting Emma's request, but his absence left a void she hadn't expected. She missed his dumb jokes, his easy grin, the way he made her laugh despite herself. But the Forbes article, Vanessa's photo, and Maya's warnings kept her guard up. Still, she couldn't stop thinking about the seashell he'd given her in Beacon, now tucked in her pocket. Its smooth surface, a quiet comfort. Then the storm broke. Talia burst into Sea Whisper one evening, her phone in hand, her voice shaking. "Emma, check this. Some Instagram post says Leo bought the block. Sea Whisper's on through his foundation. And guess who posted it? Vanessa freaking Reed." Emma's heart sank as she grabbed the phone. The post from Vanessa's verified account showed a screenshot of a property deed linked to Bright Horizon Foundation with a caption, "Looks like Leo Westwood's playing hero again. Saving Cape May's bookstore." or buying his way into someone's heart. Emma's vision blurred, rage and betrayal choking her. Leo had gone behind her back, buying the land to stop coastal ventures, but without telling her. Was this another secret? Another way to control her? She dialed him, her voice ice when he answered. You bought my block, Leo. You think you can just buy my life? Emma, listen, he said, his voice urgent, crackling through the phone. I did it to save Sea Whisper. Those developers were going to sue you into the ground. I didn't want you to lose everything. You don't get to decide that, she shouted, her curls bouncing as she paced the shop. You're just like Daniel thinking I need saving. I trusted you, Leo. And you lied again. I didn't lie, he said, his voice breaking. I love you, Emma. I'd do anything to protect what you've built. But I messed up not telling you. I'm sorry. Her breath caught at his words. I love you, but they only fueled her anger. Don't, she said, her voice trembling. Just stay away. She hung up, tears streaming down her cheeks, the seashell in her pocket feeling like a lie. That night, Emma couldn't sleep, the waves outside her apartment roaring like her thoughts. She drove to the Cape May lighthouse, its beam cutting through the fog, and climbed to the top, the spiral stairs echoing her heartbeat. The air was thick with salt, the ocean, a dark expanse below. She needed clarity, and this was where she'd always found it. But she wasn't alone. Daniel stood at the railing, his suit jacket flapping in the wind, his face shadowed. Talia said you'd be here, he said, his voice soft. Emma, I heard about the developers. I can help. I work for Coastal Ventures. Sell Sea Whisper. Come with me to Philly. We can start over like we planned. Her heart twisted the old dreams. Philly nights. Daniel's promises flashing like ghosts. But as she looked at him, she saw the truth. He'd never valued her shop, her kids, her fight. He wanted a version of her that didn't exist. No, Daniel, she said, her voice steady, her brown eyes fierce. This bookstore is my home, my dream. I'm not selling, and I'm not going with you. I choose me. Daniel's face hardened, but he didn't argue. You're making a mistake, Emma, he said, then walked away, his footsteps fading into the night. Emma stood alone, the lighthouse's beam sweeping over her, her curls wild in the wind. For the first time she felt unburdened. Her choice, a spark of strength, but Leo's betrayal still stung. She needed to confront him face to face, to know if his love was real or just another secret. The next evening after closing, Sea Whisper, Emma stayed late, the shop glowing under lantern light, the air scented with paper and cedar. She was shelving books when the bell jingled, and Leo stepped in his navy jacket, dusted with sea mist, his blue eyes raw with regret. Emma, he said, his voice soft. I know you told me to stay away, but I can't. Not without trying to fix this. She crossed her arms, her sundress swaying, her heart pounding. Fix what, Leo? You went behind my back. You think I'm some damsel you gotta save. No, he said, stepping closer, the space between them. Electric. I think you're the strongest woman I know. I bought the land 'cause I believe in Sea Whisper in you. I should have told you, and I'm sorry. But I'm not Daniel. I'm not here to change you. I love you. Her breath caught his words, a wave crashing over her. The shop's warmth wrapped around them, the scent of her jasmine perfume mingling with his sandalwood cologne. Leo reached out his fingers, brushing her cheek, slow and gentle, tracing the curve of her jaw. Her skin tingled, the touch igniting a fire she'd tried to bury. Leo. She whispered, her voice trembling, her eyes locked on his. He leaned closer, his hand sliding to her neck, fingers tangling in her curls, the softness of her hair grounding him. "Tell me you don't feel this," he murmured, his breath warm against her lips, the lantern light dancing on her brown skin. She didn't pull away, her hand resting on his chest, feeling the steady thump of his heart through his shirt. Their lips met slow and deliberate, a kiss that tasted of salt and longing, her curls brushing his face, his hands steady on her waist. The world faded, leaving only the heat of his mouth, the softness of her response, the quiet hum of the shop around them. But fear surged, Daniel's betrayal and Vanessa's photo flashing in her mind. She broke the kiss, stepping back, her chest heaving, her eyes glistening. "I can't," she said, her voice raw. "I don't know if I can trust you, Leo." His face fell, but he nodded, his hands dropping. "I'll prove it, Emma. However long it takes." He left a small white seashell on the counter, its surface gleaming, and walked out, the bells jingle. A quiet echo. Emma sank into a chair, her fingers tracing the seashell tears falling. Outside, the waves roared, and a new post from Vanessa Reed lit up Cape May's gossip feeds. Trouble in Paradise, for Leo Westwood's latest obsession. The storm wasn't over, and Emma knew it was only getting started. Cape May shimmered under a late summer moon, its Victorian houses glowing like pastel jewels along Washington Street. The Atlantic's waves sang a restless lullaby, their rhythm echoing the tension in Emma Brooks's heart. At 28, she stood at a crossroads, her trust battered by Daniel's betrayal, Leo's secrets, and Vanessa's venomous Instagram posts. Sea Whisper, her bookstore, was safe for now. Leo's purchase of the block had stopped Coastal Ventures' casino plans, but the cost was her faith in him. His words, "I love you," lingered like the seashell in her pocket, both a promise and a risk. Emma leaned against the counter of Sea Whisper, her brown skin catching the golden glow of the shop's lanterns, her curly hair loose, cascading over her shoulders. She wore a simple teal blouse, but her deep brown eyes were stormy, replaying the kiss with Leo, slow, searing, and terrifying. She'd pushed him away, afraid to trust, but the ache of his absence was louder than her fear. Maya's warnings. Vanessa's photo. Daniel's return. They swirled in her mind, drowning out the quiet strength she'd found at the lighthouse. The bell jingled and Talia burst in her braids adorned with gold beads, her floral dress vibrant. "Yoey, you ready for this gala tonight?" she said, waving a flyer for the charity event at Congress Hall, a historic hotel by the beach. "Whole town's buzzin'. And word is, Leo's one of the big donors. You gonna face him or what?" Emma's stomach twisted. She'd avoided Leo since their fight, but the gala raising funds for local libraries, including Sea Whisper, was unavoidable. "I don't know, T," she said, her voice soft, fingers tracing the seashell in her pocket. "Every time I see him, it's like I want to believe him, but I'm scared." Talia plopped onto a stool, her eyes softening. "Girl, you're Emma Brooks, queen of this town. You stood up to Daniel, kept Sea Whisper alive. You're stronger than you think. If Leo's for real, he'll show it. If not, you kick his ass to the curb." Emma laughed, the sound easing her nerves. "Aight. T, I'll go, but if he pulls some billionaire stunt, I'm out." That evening, Congress Hall glowed like a beacon, its white columns and chandeliers casting a warm light over the gala. Paper lanterns hung from the ceiling, and temporary bookshelves lined the walls, offering novels for donations. The air smelled of cedarwood and fresh-baked cornbread, a nod to Cape May's soul food roots. Locals and tourists mingled their laughter, blending with a jazz quartet playing Nina Simone's "Feeling Good." Emma stepped inside her sea blue silk dress, hugging her curves, the fabric shimmering under the lights. Her curls were free, a single daisy tucked behind her ear, a quiet echo of her wedding day. But without the pain, the shell pendant necklace Leo had given her rested against her collarbone, a choice she hadn't overthought, or so she told herself. Her brown skin glowed, her eyes scanning the room, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and defiance. She spotted Leo in a corner reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar to a group of kids, including Isaiah, his voice warm and animated, his navy blazer sleeves rolled up. His blue eyes sparkled, his grin making the kids giggle and Emma's chest tightened. He looked like the Leo she'd laughed with over cornbread, not the billionaire who'd bought her block. But before she could approach, a familiar figure cut through the crowd. Vanessa Reed, in a sleek black dress, her red lipstick sharp, sauntered toward Emma, her smile venomous. "Well, look who's here," Vanessa said, her voice dripping with mock surprise. "Cape May's bookstore, darling, enjoying Leo's charity spotlight? Or are you just his latest project?" Emma's jaw clenched, her curls bouncing as she faced Vanessa. "Back off, Vanessa. I don't need your shade." Vanessa smirked, holding up her phone where a new Instagram post glowed Leo Westwood's small-town fling, love or pity. Cape May drama. The comments were brutal. "She's just after his money. Poor girl doesn't know he's playing her." Emma's blood boiled, her hands trembling, but Vanessa leaned closer, her voice low. "Face it, Emma. You're out of your league. Leo's just slumming it until he's bored." The room seemed to shrink, the jazz fading to a hum, the crowd's eyes prickling her skin. Emma's heart raced, memories of Daniel's dismissal and Maya's warnings crashing over her. But then she saw Isaiah, his wide eyes watching, and Talia, her fists clenched, ready to throw hands, and Leo now standing, his gaze locked on her, a mix of worry and fire. Emma straightened, her voice steady, her brown eyes blazing. "You want to talk about me, Vanessa? Let's talk." She stepped onto the small stage where the jazz band had paused, grabbing the mic. The room hushed, every eye on her. "I'm Emma Brooks, and Sea Whisper is my heart. It's where I teach kids like Isaiah to dream, where I honor black voices like Audre Lorde. I don't need pity, and I sure as hell don't need your lies." She pulled a folded paper from her pocket, her hands steady now, and read Lorde's A Litany for Survival. "And when the sun rises, we are afraid. It might not remain, but when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive." Her voice rang clear, each word a defiance, her curls catching the light, her skin radiant. The crowd erupted in applause, Isaiah cheering Talia, wiping tears, and Leo staring, his eyes shimmering with awe. Vanessa's smirk faltered, her phone slipping to her side. Emma stepped off the stage, her heart pounding. But before she could reach Talia, Leo was there, his presence. "A gravitational pull, Emma," he said, his voice thick, his blazer brushing her arm. "That was... You're incredible." She met his eyes, her guard still up, but cracking. "Don't, Leo. I'm not here for your applause." "I know," he said, stepping closer, the crowd fading to a blur. "I'm here for you, all of you, your strength, your fire, your heart. I messed up, not telling you about the land, about everything. But I love you, Emma Brooks. I've loved you since I saw you reading to those kids 2 years ago. And I'll love you every damn day if you let me." Her breath caught his words, a tide washing over her doubts. The jazz band started again, a slow R&B melody, and Leo held out his hand. "Dance with me," he said, his voice soft but firm. "Just one dance." She hesitated, then took his hand, her fingers trembling against his warmth. They moved to the center of the room, the chandeliers casting golden flecks on her blue dress, her curls swaying. His hand rested on her waist, steady and sure, and she felt the world shift, the music wrapping around them like a promise. "I'm scared, Leo," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the saxophone's wail. "Scared I'll fall and break again." "You won't," he said, his eyes locked on hers, blue and unwavering. "And if you do, I'll be there to catch you. Ride or die." Emma. The song ended, but Leo didn't let go. He dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket, the room gasping. Inside was a silver ring, a tiny seashell etched into the band. "Emma Brooks," he said, his voice steady, loud enough for all to hear. "You're my light, my story, my home. Marry me. Not 'cause I'm a billionaire, but 'cause I'm a man who can't live without you." Tears streamed down her cheeks, her heart pounding, the crowd a blur of cheers and gasps. Maya in the back nodded, her eyes wet, finally convinced. Isaiah bounced, shouting, "Say yes, Miss Emma." Talia grinned, her fists unclenched, and Emma, her brown skin glowing under the lights, saw only Leo, his grin, his heart, his truth. "Yeah, Leo," she said, her voice clear, a smile breaking through. "I'm in, ride or die." The crowd roared, and Leo slid the ring onto her finger, standing to pull her into his arms. Their lips met a kiss, fierce and deep, the chandelier's light dancing on her curls, the jazz swelling like a heartbeat. Her hands gripped his blazer, his arms tight around her waist, the world fading to the heat of their connection, the saxophone's wail echoing their joy. They broke apart, breathless, her eyes glistening, his grin brighter than the moon. But the night wasn't done. As the gala wound down, Emma and Leo slipped outside to Sunset Beach, the waves a soft roar under the starry sky. The moonlight painted her skin silver, her blue dress shimmering like the sea. The air was alive with salt and possibility. The distant hum of the gala fading, Leo pulled her close, his hands sliding to her hips, the fabric of her dress thin under his fingers. "You're my whole damn world, Emma," he murmured, his voice a low growl, the waves crashing in rhythm with her pulse. She pressed against him, her hands on his chest, feeling the heat through his shirt. The moonlight caught his eyes, blue and burning, and she let herself fall into the moment. His lips grazed her neck, a spark igniting her skin, the sound of his breath mingling with the ocean's song. "Leo," she whispered, her voice trembling with want, her curls brushing his face as she tilted her head. Their lips met again, urgent and hungry, her hands tangling in his hair, his fingers tracing the curve of her spine. The waves roared the stars, a silent witness, their kiss, a vow deeper than words. They pulled back breathless, her eyes locked on his, the night electric around them. "We're really doing this," she said, a laugh bubbling up her ring, glinting in the moonlight. "Hell yeah," he said, his grin wicked. "You're stuck with me now." But as they returned to the gala hand in hand, Emma's phone buzzed with a notification, an email anonymous but vicious, linked to a tabloid article, Leo Westwood's charity scandal, fraud or cover-up. The accusations were wild siphoned funds, fake donations, and Vanessa's name was all over the comments, her smirk practically visible. Worse, a text from an unknown number followed. "Ask Daniel about coastal ventures. Leo's not who you think." Emma's heart sank, the ring suddenly heavy on her finger. She looked at Leo, his face lit with joy, unaware of the storm brewing. Vanessa and Daniel were playing a dangerous game, and Emma knew the fight for her future with Sea Whisper with Leo was far from over. Cape May glowed under a golden summer sun, its Victorian houses draped in morning light, the Atlantic's waves singing a timeless hymn. Sunset Beach shimmered its white sand, warm underfoot, a canvas for new beginnings. Emma Brooks, now 29, stood in her small apartment, gazing into a mirror. Her brown skin radiated her deep brown eyes, bright with joy, free of the shadows that had haunted her a year ago. Her curly hair fell naturally, a single white daisy tucked into its coils, a nod to the wedding that never was. But today, in a flowing white silk dress with shell-embroidered hems, she was a bride again, not for Daniel, but for Leo Westwood, the man who'd seen her when she couldn't see herself. The seashell pendant necklace Leo had given her rested against her collarbone, and the silver ring with its etched shell glinted on her finger. Emma's heart beat steady, not with fear, but with a certainty she'd fought to claim. The anonymous email accusing Leo of fraud, Vanessa's vicious posts, and Daniel's cryptic text about coastal ventures, they'd shaken her. But she wasn't the woman who'd crumbled on her last wedding day. She was Emma Brooks, Queen of Sea Whisper, and she was ready to love fully and fiercely. Talia burst into the room, her braids adorned with gold beads, her teal dress vibrant. "Girl, you look like a straight-up goddess," she said, her eyes misty, pulling Emma into a hug. "Leo's gonna lose his damn mind when he sees you." Emma laughed, her cheeks flushing. "Chill. T. I just want today to be us. No drama. No secrets." Talia wiped a tear, grinning. "It's gonna be perfect." "You deserve this more than anybody." Emma glanced out the window, the sea stretching to the horizon, its waves a soft roar. A year ago, she'd stood on Sunset Beach, her heart shattered as Daniel vanished. She'd thought love was a trap, a promise that always broke. But Leo, his cornbread nights, his dumb jokes, his unwavering patience, had shown her it could be real messy and worth fighting for. He hadn't just saved Sea Whisper, he'd helped her save herself. The wedding was set on Sunset Beach, near the spot where they'd read to kids, hunted seashells, and kissed under the stars. A white canvas tent stood by the water, decorated with daisy garlands and sea blue ribbons. Wooden chairs formed an intimate circle filled with Cape May locals, kids from Sea Whisper and Maya, who'd driven from Newark. Her journalist's skepticism finally softened. A local band played acoustic R&B Alicia Keys' "If I Ain't Got You Floating Over the Waves," and a table held soul food, Gigi ran, cornbread, collard greens, a nod to Emma's roots. Emma emerged from a path lined with wildflowers, her silk dress catching the breeze, her curls bouncing. The crowd clapped, Isaiah leading the charge, shouting, "Miss Emma's a queen!" She laughed, bending to hug him, her heart full. Her eyes found Leo standing under the driftwood arch, his light blue linen suit tie, free, his dark brown hair tousled by the wind. His blue eyes locked on her, shimmering with joy and a hint of mischief, like he was plotting a bad joke. She walked toward him, her bare feet sinking into the sand, the waves a steady pulse. Leo took her hand, his fingers warm, enveloping hers. "Emma Brooks," he whispered, his voice thick. "You're more beautiful than every book in Sea Whisper, and that's saying something." She grinned, her eyes misty. "You still can't be serious, huh?" "Only if you let me," he said, winking, then softening. "Thank you, Emma, for choosing me." "For choosing you, Father." Amos, his salt and pepper hair gleaming, smiled warmly. Today, he said, his voice carrying over the crowd. "We celebrate not just Emma and Leo's love, but their strength, two hearts that learned to heal, to trust, and to shine. Cape May's proud of you." Their vows were raw, straight from the soul. Emma looked at Leo, her voice trembling but clear. "Leo, You saw me when I was invisible, even to myself. You waited, even when I pushed you away. You make me want to be better, not perfect, but real. I promise to love you, to laugh with you, to fight for us every damn day. Leo held her hands, his eyes glistening, his grin wide. Emma, you're the story I never knew I needed. You're my light, my fire, my home. I promise to love you, protect you, and make you laugh, even when you pretend my jokes suck. I'm your ride or die forever. The crowd laughed. Isaiah clapping wildly, Maya dabbing her eyes. They exchanged rings, simple silver bands with seashell etchings, and Leo pulled her close, their lips meeting in a gentle, profound kiss, the waves roaring in applause. The kids rushed forward, tossing daisy petals, a shower of white blooms against the crimson sunset. The reception unfolded on the beach. Long tables draped in white linen, laden with soul food and pitchers of sweet tea. A mobile library corner offered Sea Whisper books for donations, a tribute to Emma's dream. The band played Aretha Franklin's Respect, and the crowd danced, kids chasing seashells, adults swaying under twinkling lanterns. Emma and Leo sat among friends, hands clasped, laughing like kids. Leo stood raising a glass of sweet tea, his voice ringing. Y'all thanks for being here to see me become the luckiest dude in Cape May. But fair warning, if anybody tries to run from this wedding, I'm chasing them. I'm fast. Just ask Emma. The crowd roared, Emma blushing as she swatted his arm. You're never changing, are you? Only if you want me to, he whispered, kissing her forehead, sparking cheers. As the night deepened, Emma and Leo slipped away to a quiet stretch of sunset beach, the waves a soft murmur, the moonlight silver on the sand. They stood barefoot, her dress flowing like a sail, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. The air was warm, scented with salt, and her jasmine perfume. The stars a canopy above. Best day of my life, Leo said, his voice low, pulling her close, his hands resting on her waist, the silk soft under his fingers. The moonlight caught her brown skin, a glow that made his breath catch. But every day with you's the best, Emma. She leaned into him, her hands on his chest, feeling the steady thump of his heart. You make every day worth living. Leo, she said, her voice soft, her curls brushing his chin. His fingers slid up her arms, tracing the curve of her shoulders, the touch slow and deliberate, igniting her skin. The lantern light from the tent flickered in the distance, casting shadows on her face, her eyes shimmering with love. Emma, he murmured, his lips grazing her temple, the warmth of his breath sending a shiver through her. Her hands slipped under his shirt, feeling the heat of his skin, the strength beneath. Their lips met slow and deep, a kiss that held every promise, every fight, every moment they'd earned. The waves whispered the moonlight, a silent witness, their touch, a vow, etched in starlight. They pulled back breathless, her curls tangled his eyes, burning with a love that needed no words. But the night held one last twist. Back at the reception, Maya approached her phone in hand, her face grim. Emma, Leo, you need to see this, she said, showing them an email. She'd intercepted an anonymous tip to a tabloid accusing Leo of funneling Bright Horizon funds to Coastal Ventures, with Daniel's name tied to the deal. Vanessa's digital fingerprints were all over it, her Instagram now boasting a cryptic post, truths coming for Cape May's golden boy. Emma's heart sank, but Leo's jaw tightened, his hand squeezing hers. They're working together, he said, his voice low. Vanessa and Daniel. Trying to take us down, Maya. Her journalist instincts blazing stepped up. I got this, she said, her eyes fierce. I've been digging into Coastal Ventures. Give me a day and I'll bury them. The next morning, Maya delivered her exposé published on a major news site, unraveled Vanessa and Daniel's scheme. Vanessa had fabricated the fraud claims using doctored emails, while Daniel, desperate for a Coastal Ventures bonus, had fed her dirt to discredit Leo. The tabloid retracted the story. Vanessa's credibility tanked, and Daniel fled Cape May, his tail between his legs. The town rallied around Leo, their faith in bright horizon restored. Emma and Leo didn't chase the drama. They built their life in Cape May in a small wooden house by the sea, its windows overlooking Sea Whisper. They stayed close to their roots, not chasing mansions or city lights. Sea Whisper grew into a cultural hub, hosting art classes, poetry slams, and storytime sessions. Emma wrote a children's book, The Girl Who Dreamed in Waves, inspired by her kids with a black heroine who found her voice. Leo was her first reader, joking she should add a funny guy with bad jokes, but he threw a launch party that packed the shop. Cape May cheering her on. They adopted Isaiah, giving him a home filled with books and love. His laughter, a daily gift. One evening by their fireplace, Leo shared more about Clara, his sister whose death had shaped his life. "She'd love you," he said, his voice low, holding Emma close. Emma opened up about her mother, her fear of never measuring up. "But I think she'd be proud now," she said, smiling, her curls catching the firelight. These stories wove them tighter, two souls fitting perfectly. One afternoon they returned to Sunset Beach barefoot, the sand warm under their toes. Emma held a white seashell, her ring glinting. "I used to think happiness was something I had to chase," she said, leaning against Leo, her voice soft. "But it's this right here with you, with the sea knowing I'm enough." He kissed her hair, his eyes sparkling. "You're the reason I believe in forever." Emma Brooks. They built a sandcastle like they did with the kids, writing Emma and Leo in the sand. A wave washed it away, and she laughed, her voice free. "Waves can erase the words, but not us." He pulled her close, nodding. "Nothing can erase us." Cape May remained their home. Sea Whisper, a beacon for dreamers. Emma and Leo became legends, not for his wealth or her heartbreak, but for their love. A story of scars, strength, and seashells. One sunset outside the bookstore, Emma looked at the sea. Leo's arms around her. She wasn't the girl frozen on the beach anymore. She was Emma Brooks, vibrant, whole, and loved fully, fiercely forever. Yo, what a ride with Emma and Leo's love story. From heartbreak to forever, they proved love's worth fighting for. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. What's your favorite moment? The proposal, the wedding, or that epic takedown of Vanessa? Stay tuned for more lit stories that'll steal your heart.